Hey Lakeshore, welcome back to Life Lifters. I'm Pastor Frank. So glad to be with you again. Today we are going to continue on our tour through Rome, and today we're going to stop at the iconic Trevi Fountain. The Trevi Fountain is the largest Baroque fountain in the city of Rome. It was built in the year 1762, and it is the inspiration for many films. It was featured in the movie Roman Holiday. It was featured in the film La Dolce Vita. It was actually the inspiration for a film called Three Coins in the Fountain. So what is the draw to this fountain? Is it the grand view? Is it the magnificent sculpture of the fountain? Well, no, not really. Locals say it is people searching for romance. They're looking for true love. And so they've come to this fountain, putting their hope in it, and actually putting their hope in a coin tossed in the fountain. Locals say that if you take a coin in your right hand and you toss it over your left shoulder, that you one day will return to Rome. Others say that if you take a second coin and in the same fashion, right hand over the left shoulder, toss it into the fountain, that you will find true love. And yet others say if you take a third coin, three coins in the fountain, like the movie is called, if you take that third coin and you toss it over your shoulder into the water, you will not only find true love, but in return to Rome, but you will get married one day in Rome. That's what the legend says. I don't know. What do I know? But a lot of people, I do know this, are looking for true love because an estimated 1.25 million euros, that's the equivalent of 1.5 million US dollars, that much money is collected out of that fountain annually. So there's a lot of people looking for love. And I'll tell you this, I don't know how many bachelors or bachelorettes have actually found true love because of a coin tossed in the fountain. But maybe they've lost all hope and they figured, what else do I have to lose? Well, I want to contrast that today with a couple in the Bible that the Apostle Paul talks about, and their names are Abraham and Sarah. Abraham and Sarah from the Old Testament. They, instead of taking a trinket or a coin and tossing it in a fountain, against all hope, they put their trust in God. So in Romans chapter 4, Paul speaks about their situation. And we see that God promised Abraham a long time ago that he would be the father of many nations, that his wife Sarah would have a child, and from that child, a nation of people would be born. And they held on to this promise for many, many years. In fact, Paul tells us that when Abraham was 100 years old and his wife Sarah was 90 years old, they were still waiting for this child. Now, I don't know how many 100-year-old men and 90-year-old women that you know that are still praying to have their first child. It's likely not going to happen. And Paul tells us in verse 19 of chapter 4, he says, without weakening in his faith, Abraham faced the fact that his body was as good as dead. The guy was 100 years old. His body was as good as dead. But yet, he held on. He held on to that promise of God. It goes on to say, since he was about 100 years old, and that Sarah's womb was also dead. Sarah's womb was dead. So while the context of this passage, I've got to tell you, the context is really about the righteousness that was credited to Abraham because of his faith in God. I do believe that there is application for us today when it comes to waiting on God in a difficult situation, in an impossible situation, in a situation where there is no hope? What impossible situation are you facing in your life today? What are you waiting on God for? Is it a broken relationship? Maybe a relationship with a child or a parent or a friend is broken and you need God to mend it. Is your marriage on life support and you need God to intervene? Do you find yourself in a financial mess that there's no way out? Humanly speaking, there's no way out, but only God can fix. What is the situation that you face? You see, God is in the business. He's in the business of taking situations that look as good as dead, and he breathes new life into them. I do not believe that relationships were meant to have strife in them. I do not believe that it is God's will for marriages to fall apart. I do not believe it is God's will for you to be choked by debt. Whatever your situation, no matter how impossible it might seem to you right now, God does not want you to toss a coin into the fountain and hope it all works out. But instead, he wants you to be strong in your faith. And he wants you to trust him to restore what once was. Unfortunately, sin creeps in. Sin creeps in and it destroys families, it destroys relationships, it destroys marriages, and it destroys financial freedom. Or fill in the blank. Sin destroys whatever situation you're facing. So no matter what situation you're facing today, I want you to do this. Examine your heart. Examine your heart and ask God to reveal to you how have you contributed to that situation. How have you added to the problems? And then go and confess any unconfessed sin before God. Ask for forgiveness from those you need to seek forgiveness. Offer forgiveness to those you need to offer forgiveness. Continue to have faith that God can do the impossible in your situation, and never stop praying about it. When it comes to God's will and his promises, God can do the impossible. God will do the impossible. And for Abraham and Sarah, they finally had that son. His name was Isaac. And Isaac had a son, and his name was Jacob. And Jacob had 12 sons, and they became the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel. God came through on his promise made to Abraham and Sarah to make Abraham the father of many nations. Remember, if God can do a miracle and allow a couple to have a child in their old age, what do you think he can do for you? Remember, all things are possible with God. Thanks for joining us today, Lakeshore. So glad we could spend this time together. Don't forget to join us tomorrow because we're going to take a look at the architectural wonder known as the Pantheon. Hey, don't just have a great day, go and make a great day.